Thank you for joining us for this episode of Leading by Example, an informational video series where subject matter experts from Spectrum Healthcare Partners and Spectrum Management Services Company provide guidance and other resources to help patients, providers, and communities on timely healthcare topics.
Thank you for joining us for this segment of Leading by Example. I'm John Hauser, Director of Project Management at Spectrum Healthcare Partners, and I'll be answering questions about how to effectively reprioritize in a quickly changing landscape. We implemented the SAFE or Scaled Agile framework, and we just finished our training of our employees about a month before COVID really started hitting the U.S. shores. And in that, one of the mantras is really pivot without mercy, which really means going down the road this way, but be prepared at some point you may realize something's different and you need to take a left turn. You need to go this way. And this COVID-19 was really the definition of being able to pivot without mercy. So we just finished showing people and talking about this, and here it is actually coming to fruition. Some of the things we actually did in here, the first one was we actually took a look at all of our features that we were working on. We had 20 plus features we're working on with a various number of teams. And we identified what were the top 3 that we had to do, that had to keep going along. And then we kept those going along, we kept those teams intact, and then the other 17 or 20-ish features, we actually redirected those teams. We took those teams and we put them on something, all the critical items. We took those teams and put them on the critical items that were coming up for COVID as they would come up. A lot of emerging items coming out, working from home for all of our employees, doing remote telehealth, following up on the telehealth. Every day it seemed like a new regulation was going into effect or being relaxed, so really following up on all of them. The second big thing we did is we actually had daily stand-ups twice a day. So usually you have these once a day, and that's when the team gets together, does a quick check-in of where am I, what's in my way, and this is what I'm going to be doing. But we actually had that twice a day because things were changing so fast with COVID, daily, hourly it felt like. We actually had that meeting twice a day to make sure the teams were always in sync on what was happening and understanding where the items were. And the third thing we did was put in a Kanban board. Typically these are on a wall, and very visual. They're in an office, but we had to do an electronic version, so we had an electronic one. And what these are is they represent the work that is being done in an iteration or in a sprint. So each piece of work is almost a card on here, and it moves through these different lanes or states of work. And you can think of those lanes as actually how do you add value to it. So I get a card at the beginning and it has no value done on it. It's like I've identified it. And then it goes to another state of, okay, hey, someone's taking this on, they're starting to work on it. Okay, maybe there's some initial research. And then it moves to another state of, okay, now they're actually working on it. So it's actually that value that you add until you get to the last lane when it's really, I'm done. So I'm actually done with it. So a card moves through these different lanes on this Kanban. You see a lot of cards moving, and people get assigned to each of these cards as they go through. So then these cards are all in the electronic version of it, and everyone can see all the cards and all the work that's being done. And when they see that, and they see a card is not moving, so it's in this lane maybe for a day, then 2 days, then maybe 3 days, and it's not moving, people will actually be able to say, let's swarm around this, let's move this. What is it that you know that may help break the logjam on this card and move it to the next state? Get it over into that review section. Get it over into the done. That's where we really want to get all of these cards across the Kanban. And that's what this enabled us to do, is actually see all the work, and then each employee could see if something's not moving, how can I help move that along? And because we were acting so fast, people were able to just, hey, let me give you 20 minutes of my time and I know I can get it to the next stage for you. So a lot of people were doing that. A lot of people pitched in and could see that. And so it was very instrumental to have that visual look of all the work that's happening with a Kanban board. Those top 3 features we had to keep going. We had to find different ways to make those keep going, because what we thought before, we'd be having meetings and all in one room and we would all be able to caucus and figure this out, but now it all had to be remote. So we had to really rethink some things. One of them was a large software vendor we were doing. We're going to have a few vendors in here and showing us what they're doing, where we could touch it and feel it and go through the questions, but we had to do all of that remote. We set up a lot of different, we got very good at setting up remote meetings, how to tape those meetings for people that couldn't make that exact time. And actually I had some people come back and say, you know, now that we did that remotely, it may actually have been better than when it was in person, because people could go and they could jump around to different places very quickly. But we set up parallel rooms in these remote meetings. Another feature that we had that was critical to keep moving was actually an office move. We had to pick up one practice and move them over to another location. And in doing that, we were planning, oh, we'll just have the movers come in, they'll do this, we'll all be there helping them, load the truck, and obviously all of that went out the window with COVID. So we had to find other ways to do this. One of the ways was, as we had people going there, they would actually pick up equipment, put it in their car, and bring it over to the other location. So we had a slow moving. You know, we actually started weeks ahead of time and picked up a couple computers, picked up some files, so that at the very end, when the movers came, they were there for a very short time, picked up the items, and they dropped it off very quickly. Nobody was at the other office when they dropped it off, and then people came in one at a time later on, very sparse, in order just to hook those pieces up. So that was another thing we had to do in order just to cope with the COVID and the regulations. So some of these new projects that came out of the woodwork are just, you know, when we did that Pivot Without Mercy, these were the ones that we were pivoting to. Some of those projects were big ones. We had no telehealth at the beginning. We really didn't dive into that at all at this point. So we had to get that working very quickly because patients weren't able to come in or didn't want to come in and be exposed. So we put up a whole large telehealth solution, you know, within days. Training people, getting it out there so that they knew how to use it, so that our patients knew how to use it, so it was an easy to use solution. Also part of that telehealth is just the guidelines are changing so fast from every payer on what they allow, how do we bill it, you know, what are the different things we have to put in the notes, have they consented, you know, what is CMS telling us now, you know, how can we do physical therapy, is that covered yet? So all of those different pieces we also had to collaborate and put together and make sure that we were educating our providers on exactly what they can and can't do at this moment. And again, it was changing day by day. It still is changing day by day. Another piece that we did is we actually put together, just for our company, a clearinghouse of information. We put together a site just so people could get to the information and get it quickly. We used Microsoft Teams for this. And actually have a team site where we can get all the latest COVID information. If you're an employee, you can get the latest COVID telehealth information if you want, and all of these publications that are coming out, all these changes are all getting there. They're getting distilled by our HR department for some people, or from our revenue cycle department, and they're posting information there, just so people had one place to go and didn't have to keep going out to many different websites. They could actually have a resource to go to and look at. Thank you again for joining us for this episode of Leading by Example. I'm John Hauser. If you have any questions about what I discussed today, please don't hesitate to contact us. We may have resources that can help your organization.